He lurked in the shadows, a phantom, a whisper. He left his mark on the world in the only way he knew how: death. The Cipher Killer, as he came to be known, had arrived. Mill Creek, a town like any other. Until the day the sun seemed to dim, the Andersons' house stood on a quiet street, a picture of domestic bliss. Behind the white picket fence lay a horror unimaginable. A note, a cipher. The air crackled with tension as detectives huddled around it. The Cipher Killer. Fear gripped Mill Creek. The cipher was a window into the killer's psyche. The detectives worked tirelessly, following every lead. The town held its breath. The first murder was just the beginning. The cipher, a silent scream, echoed in their minds. Weeks dripped by, each one thick with dread. Then it happened again. A second body surfaced, a lone jogger, another note, another cipher. The town was in an uproar. The media descended on Mill Creek. The Cipher Killer, he wrote. The name spread like wildfire. The Cipher Killer, once a phantom, now had an identity. The murders became national obsessions. The internet exploded. Forums dedicated to the Cipher Killer sprang up. Armchair detectives dissected every detail. The Cipher Killer became a global enigma. The line between reality and the digital world blurred. The ciphers became the ultimate online challenge. Reddit threads exploded with theories. The world had become a giant game of Clue. The public's obsession was a double-edged sword. The Cipher Killer had become a spectacle. Fame has a strange allure. The Cipher Killer's notoriety spawned imitators. Pranks, hoaxes, and copycat threats flooded in. The authorities were burdened with false leads. The real killer remained silent. One incident highlighted the dangerous consequences. Teenagers staged a mock crime scene. The media, initially fooled, descended on the scene. The police debunked the hoax. The incident sowed seeds of doubt. (2002). The shadow of the Cipher Killer still loomed large. Then a breakthrough. A young cryptography enthusiast deciphered a small section. The message was chilling, a taunt from the killer. The deciphered fragment, while a significant breakthrough, was a double-edged sword. It offered a glimpse into the killer's psyche, a confirmation of his intelligence and his utter lack of remorse. But it also revealed a terrifying truth. The killer had been toying with them all along. The ciphers, those cryptic messages that had captivated the world, were not random ramblings of a madman. They were carefully crafted puzzles, each one designed to taunt, to mislead, to send the authorities on wild goose chases. The killer was always one step ahead, his mind a labyrinth that they were no closer to navigating. The news of the deciphered fragment, carefully leaked to the media, sent shockwaves through the public. The copycats, once emboldened by the perceived anonymity of the internet, retreated into the shadows, their bravado extinguished by the realization that they were dealing with a mind far more cunning, far more dangerous than they could have imagined. But the revelation came too late. The Cipher Killer, as if sensing the shift in the game, disappeared. The killing stopped, the cryptic messages ceased. The monster that had haunted Mill Creek, that had held the world captive with its cryptic messages, had vanished as quickly as it had appeared. The silence, however, was more deafening than any cipher. It was the silence of a predator lying in wait, its hunger unsatiated, its game far from over. The deciphered fragment, a glimmer of hope in the darkness, had revealed a chilling truth. The Cipher Killer was still out there, watching, waiting, planning his next move. The game, it seemed, had just begun. Years crawled by, each one etched with the chilling memory of the Cipher Killer. The silence, deafening, served as a constant reminder of the unsolved murders, the unanswered questions. The case had long turned cold, the files gathering dust in the evidence room, a testament to the killer's ability to vanish into thin air. Yet the memory of the terror he had inflicted lingered, a phantom limb pain in the heart of Mill Creek. Then, in the spring of 2008, a discovery. An abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town, its windows boarded up, its doors creaking in the wind like the whispers of ghosts. A tip, from who or why no one knew, led the police to the dilapidated structure, its silence promising something more sinister than mere decay. Inside, a labyrinth of dust-covered machinery and forgotten inventory. Cobwebs, thick as shrouds, hung from the rafters, catching the faint rays of sunlight that pierced the gloom. The air was thick with the smell of mildew and decay, the silence broken only by the scuttling of rats and the pounding hearts of the officers as they moved deeper into the building. And then, they found it. A hidden door, concealed behind a stack of rotting crates, its existence betrayed by a faint outline in the dust. It was a crudely constructed entrance, as if hastily assembled by someone desperate to keep their secrets hidden from prying eyes. The lock, a simple padlock, yielded easily to the bolt cutters, the metallic snap echoing through the silent warehouse like a gunshot. The door swung inward, revealing a staircase leading down into darkness, the air growing noticeably colder, the smell of mildew replaced by the musty scent of undisturbed air. Section 2, Empty Vessel, Haunted Words. The room at the bottom of the stairs was small, cramped, and surprisingly organized. A single bare bulb cast a dim light on the space, revealing walls lined with shelves, each one stacked high with notebooks, journals, and files. The air was thick with the smell of old paper and dried ink, the silence now oppressive, pregnant with the weight of untold secrets. The notebooks, bound in cheap leather and secured with flimsy locks, were filled with the killer's looping handwriting. Page after page of scribbled notes, diagrams, and ciphers, a chilling testament to a mind obsessed. Dates, times, locations, all meticulously recorded, alongside sketches of faces, maps of streets, and chillingly detailed descriptions of the murders. The journals, however, were different. They were more personal, filled with rambling thoughts, philosophical musings, and dark confessions. The killer poured his heart onto these pages, revealing a twisted sense of logic, a warped perception of the world, and a chilling lack of remorse for his actions. They found no photographs, no personal effects, no fingerprints. The killer, despite leaving a room full of his thoughts and fantasies, had left no trace of his physical self. It was as if he wanted his mind, his words, to be his only legacy, his identity forever shrouded in mystery. The discovery of the secret lair, while providing a treasure trove of information, only deepened the mystery. It was a silent confession, a glimpse into the mind of a monster, but it offered no answers to the questions that had haunted Mill Creek for years. Who was the Cipher Killer, and why had he decided to play God with the lives of innocents? Dr. Eleanor Richards, a renowned criminal profiler with the FBI, stared at the wall of her office. Photos, case files, and handwritten notes formed a macabre tapestry of the Cipher Killer's crimes. Each cipher, meticulously pinned beside its corresponding victim's file, seemed to mock her, their intricate patterns a reflection of the killer's equally intricate psyche. She had spent weeks, months even, immersed in the case, poring over the notebooks, the journals, the cryptic messages that were as much a part of the killer's signature as the blood he'd spilled. Sleep had become a luxury she could ill afford, her dreams haunted by fragments of code, whispers of a mind teetering on the precipice of madness. The Cipher Killer wasn't driven by the same base desires that motivated most criminals. This wasn't about power, about money, or even about the twisted satisfaction of inflicting pain. This was about control, about proving his intellectual superiority over everyone else, even perhaps especially those tasked with catching him. His ciphers weren't just puzzles to be solved, they were a form of communication, a way for him to demonstrate his brilliance, to engage in a one-sided dialogue with a world he viewed as intellectually inferior. Each symbol, each carefully chosen word, was a deliberate act of manipulation, a way to taunt, to mislead, to leave the authorities grasping at shadows. Dr. Richards traced the outline of a cipher with her finger, her mind working through the possible psychological implications of each symbol. The killer, she believed, craved recognition, but not in the traditional sense. He didn't want fame. He wanted to be feared, respected even for his intellect. He was likely highly educated, possibly even gifted, with a background in mathematics, cryptography, or computer science. He was someone who lived in his mind, who found solace in the order and logic of numbers and patterns, a world where emotions were irrelevant, where intellect reigned supreme. His need for control, however, hinted at a deep-seated insecurity, a fear of being ordinary, of being forgotten. The murders, as horrific as they were merely a means to an end, a way to draw attention to his ciphers, to force the world to acknowledge his brilliance. The victims in his mind were probably nothing more than pawns, their lives insignificant compared to the intricate game he was playing. He likely dehumanized them, viewing them as abstract entities in his grand design, their deaths a necessary evil in his pursuit of intellectual validation. Dr. Richards knew that understanding the killer's psychology was the key to catching him. He was playing a game and she needed to learn the rules to anticipate his next move. But the deeper she delved into his mind, the more she realized that the Cipher Killer wasn't playing checkers, he was playing chess, and he was always several moves ahead. The absence of a physical profile only fueled the flames of speculation. With no face to put to the name, no fingerprints to trace, the Cipher Killer became a blank canvas onto which anyone could project their fears, their theories, their own interpretations of evil. The rumors spread like wildfire, fueled by the media's insatiable hunger for a story, any story, that could shed light on the enigma that had captivated the nation. Some whispered that he was a disgruntled professor, his mind warped by years spent in ivory towers, his ego bruised by academic slights. Had a failed thesis defense, a rejected research paper, pushed him over the edge, transforming him from an unassuming scholar into a cold-blooded killer? Others pointed to the military-industrial complex, convinced that the killer was a former codebreaker, his mind honed by years spent deciphering Cold War secrets. Had he been discarded by the government he'd served, his skills deemed obsolete in a world obsessed with digital warfare? Was he seeking revenge, his ciphers a twisted message to those who had betrayed him? The theories, as varied as they were outlandish, circulated in the echo chambers of the internet, each one finding fertile ground in the minds of those desperate for answers. The lack of concrete evidence, instead of hindering speculation, only seemed to encourage it, the mystery of the Cipher Killer becoming a shared delusion, a collective nightmare that refused to be ignored. One theory, however, persisted, refusing to be dismissed as mere conjecture. It was a theory rooted in the whispers of the past, in the hushed stories of a time when Mill Creek was a very different place. Local legend spoke of a reclusive artist, a man named Edward Kane, who had lived on the outskirts of town in the years following World War II. Kane, a veteran himself, was said to have been a brilliant but troubled soul, his mind scarred by the horrors he'd witnessed overseas. He had withdrawn from society, seeking solace in his art, his paintings a window into a world both beautiful and terrifying. Kane's art, however, was not for the faint of heart. His canvases were filled with strange symbols, cryptic messages, and disturbing imagery that hinted at a mind grappling with demons the world could not comprehend. He had become a recluse, shunning human contact, his only companions the ghosts of his past, and the twisted visions that haunted his waking hours. Then, as suddenly as he had appeared, Kane vanished. Some whispered that he had finally succumbed to his demons, his mind fracturing under the weight of his own darkness. Others believed that he had simply grown tired of the world, choosing to disappear into the anonymity of his own creation. The legend of Edward Kane might have faded into obscurity, another ghost story in a town full of them, had it not been for a chilling detail. The symbols, the cryptic messages that adorned Kane's paintings, bore a striking resemblance to the ciphers left behind by the killer. Was it a coincidence? A cruel trick of fate? Or was there a deeper connection, a hidden thread linking the troubled artist of the past to the nightmare that haunted the present? Amongst the mountain of evidence retrieved from the warehouse, one cipher stood out. It was more complex than the others, longer, denser, a tangled knot of symbols and characters that seemed to defy decryption. This cipher, unlike the others, had never been seen before, never been linked to any of the murders. It was as if the killer had saved his most intricate creation for last, a final challenge to a world that had tried and failed to understand him. Or perhaps it was something more personal, a confession hidden in plain sight, a message that could only be deciphered by someone who could truly penetrate the depths of his madness. Years turned into decades, the case growing colder with each passing season, yet the unsolved cipher remained a thorn in the side of law enforcement, a constant reminder of their inability to fully unravel the mystery of the Cipher Killer. It was a puzzle box missing its key, a locked door with no visible handle, a mystery wrapped in an enigma tucked inside a riddle. Cryptographers, both amateur and professional, had tried their hand at it, their efforts fueled by a mixture of curiosity and a burning desire to bring closure to the families of the victims. But the cipher held its secrets close, its intricate web of symbols and characters remaining stubbornly resistant to interpretation. Some argued that the unsolved cipher was a red herring, a deliberate distraction designed to mislead and confound. They believed that the killer, in his arrogance, had created a puzzle that was impossible to solve, a final act of defiance against a world that had tried to pigeonhole him, to reduce his brilliance to a set of psychological profiles and criminal motives. Others, however, clung to the belief that the cipher held the key to unlocking the killer's true identity. They argued that within its intricate patterns lay a confession, a map to the darkest recesses of his mind, a Rosetta Stone that could finally reveal the man behind the mask of madness. The unsolved cipher became a symbol of the case itself, a tangible representation of the unanswered questions, the unfinished business that continued to haunt Mill Creek. It was a ghost in the machine, a digital specter that refused to be laid to rest. And as the years turned into decades, the unsolved cipher took on a life of its own, becoming a legend whispered in online forums, a challenge for a new generation of armchair detectives, their minds honed on the cryptic puzzles of the digital age. The Cipher Killer, though long gone, continued to cast a long shadow, his legacy preserved in the Unsolved Code, a testament to the enduring power of mystery. The enigma of the Cipher Killer, the chilling allure of his cryptic puzzles, had captivated a nation. The media, hungry for a story, had dissected every detail, every theory, every dead end, their cameras capturing the morbid fascination of a public enthralled by the darkness. But in the shadows of the spectacle, the victims' families lived with a different kind of cipher. The silence left by their loved ones' absence. Theirs wasn't a game of codes and clues, of intellectual one-upmanship. It was a world stripped bare, the vibrant colors of life replaced by the stark, agonizing monochrome of grief. Their loved ones reduced to case files, to photographs on a wall, their stories lost in the cacophony of speculation and conjecture. They gathered for support groups, their shared grief a fragile bond in a world that seemed to have moved on, caught in the undertow of the killer's game. They sat in circles, their faces etched with a pain that transcended words, their silence speaking volumes about the emptiness that had become their constant companion. They were haunted by unanswered questions, by the agonizing what-ifs that echoed in the empty spaces where laughter and conversation once filled their homes. They clung to memories, to faded photographs, to the scent of a loved one's perfume, anything to keep the darkness at bay. Time, they say, heals all wounds, but for the families of the Cipher Killer's victims, time had become a cruel distortion, stretching their pain into an endless present. The world saw a puzzle to be solved, a mystery to be unraveled. They saw only the gaping hole in their lives, a wound that refused to heal. They watched as the years turned into decades, the case growing colder, the trail gone icy with the passage of time. They felt the sting of each dead end, each failed attempt to crack the killer's code, their hope flickering like a candle in the wind, threatening to be extinguished by the slightest breeze of disappointment. They lived with the knowledge that the person who had stolen their loved ones from them might still be out there walking free, their shadow a constant presence in their lives. The thought of him living his life, breathing, laughing while their world remained frozen in time was an unbearable agony, a constant reminder of the injustice that gnawed at their souls. Their grief was a private ocean, vast and unforgiving. They navigated its treacherous currents with a quiet strength, their love for their lost ones the only compass in a world that had lost its bearings. They carried on, not because they had found a way to outrun their grief, but because they had learned to carry its weight, to bear the unbearable, to find meaning in the midst of senseless loss. 2008. The warehouse discovery was like opening a tomb, a glimpse into a mind both brilliant and profoundly disturbed. But it was a cold lead. The Cipher Killer, if he was even alive, had vanished. The silence stretched, unbroken, year after year. Some investigators retired, others moved on to new cases, new monsters to chase. Mill Creek slowly began to breathe again, the shadows receding, the whispers fading into the background noise of everyday life. But the families of the victims, they never forgot. They lived with the echo of that silence, the unanswered questions a constant weight on their hearts. Was he dead? Had he simply moved on, his macabre game abandoned for a new life, a new identity? Or was he out there, somewhere, watching, waiting, planning his next move? The lack of closure was its own kind of torment, a wound that could never fully heal, a scar that ached whenever the wind blew cold. Some found solace in religion, others in therapy, some in the company of their fellow survivors, bound by a shared grief that no one else could truly understand. The world moved on. The internet, once ablaze with theories and speculation, had turned its attention to new mysteries, new monsters to dissect and debate. The Cipher Killer was yesterday's news, a ghost story told in hushed tones, a cautionary tale about the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of ordinary life. Then, in 2016, a flicker. A local newspaper received a letter, the envelope addressed in familiar, spidery handwriting. Inside, a single sheet of paper filled with a complex cipher. No demands, no threats, just the chilling echo of a pattern that had haunted the town for years. The news spread like wildfire, reigniting the embers of fear that had never truly died. The police, their skepticism tinged with a grudging respect for the killer's audacity, called in cryptography experts, their fingers tracing the familiar patterns, their minds searching for a way to break the code. But the code, like the killer himself, remained elusive. Was it a hoax? A cruel prank by someone seeking their 15 minutes of fame? Or was it the real deal, a message from beyond the grave, a final taunt from a ghost that refused to be silenced? The families of the victims, their wounds ripped open once more, watched and waited, their hope battling with a deep-seated dread. The silence had been broken, but the questions remained. The Cipher Killer, whether a phantom or a flesh-and-blood monster, had once again insinuated himself into their lives, a chilling reminder that some wounds never truly heal, some nightmares never end. The Cipher Killer remains a ghost, a whisper in the dark. His puzzles, unsolved, serve as a stark monument to the unknowable. They are a testament to the fact that some mysteries may never be solved, some questions may never be answered. He challenged the very fabric of our desire for order, for reason. He reminded us that chaos, like a serpent, lies coiled in the heart of things, waiting to strike. His legacy is not one of victory, though he may have seen it as such. It's a legacy of loss, of shattered lives, of families forever marked by his touch. The families left behind still search for answers in the spaces between his cryptic messages. They listen for his voice in the silence, hoping for a whisper, a clue, anything to ease the ache of their unanswered questions. The question remains, can his final cipher be broken? Can we decode the language of a mind that reveled in darkness, that danced with chaos? Perhaps the answer, like the man himself, is lost to the shadows? Or perhaps it's hidden in plain sight, a chilling whisper waiting to be heard by someone, somewhere, who dares to listen. The game, it seems, is far from over. Thank you for watching. If you found this exploration into the dark and enigmatic world of the Cipher Killer compelling, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Together, we can continue to delve into the mysteries that haunt our world, and maybe, just maybe, find the answers that elude us all.